It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler. It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler. It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler.
Chubby, bespectacled guy with glasses. He looks like a dictatorship. I believe it was.
Bueno, ok. Era una pregunta nada más. Si tengo algo que decir.
I'm Canadian, and they're like, oh, so no eres un chama. Chamo, no, lo siento, no.
That's awful.
It's Peru, like Peru, but also I have to say also, and I'm sorry, Rodrigo, like Tyler can testify. I really love Peru a lot.
You can shit on my country, honestly.
Listen. The only one I'm going to shit talk is Pedro Castillo because when I went to the Palacio, I went to the Cuarto de Golpe, and it was the funnest day ever.
By the way, we at my grocery store where I live, they actually have the local Peru soda, Inca Cola, at my
drink
place.
it all. It is the
drink it all.
All right, so Lorena, I guess let's start from the very beginning before we get to the current events. So basically, from what I gather, at some point Venezuela was the highest in terms of the economy, particularly because of petroleum. And of course, I heard about what happened with Hugo Chavez. Can you go into, I guess, more details about what occurred that led to what's been happening right now?
Well, that's actually a very long story, And by the early 20th century, there was the whole petroleum thing started, and by then we had another president who also was remembers a dictatorship. I believe it was Juan Vicente Gomez. Oh yes, Gomez, who was this guy who fought on the Venezuelan civil war, because after the independence war, Venezuela spent a lot of years in a civil war. And he was one of before Gomez, there was another president called Cipriano Castro, who was basically exiled against his will. And then Gomez, who was working with Castro, took over and self-proclaimed president. He took over. And he was the guy who, and between quotes, modernized Venezuela, He modernized the army, he modernized the freeways, everything.
And he got everyone pregnant.
Yeah, he got everyone pregnant, but that's something common. That he wasn't the only one. He wasn't unfortunately the only one.
I used to date someone who was like his granddaughter, so really? I know all about Señor Bigote.
Yep. That's a very Latin American thing, just for you to know, Tyler. That's something very, very Latin American. I don't know if that happens in the United States, or at least people admit it, because I figure that must happen in the United States, especially in certain states. But they say, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. We Latinos at least admit that we're dysfunctional. We admit that we're dysfunctional. Okay, but back to the story. Okay, so Venezuela basically spent a lot of decades with this dictatorship by Gomez, because people say, well, Gomez wasn't that bad. He modernized the country, but he had political prisoners. And actually, my great grandfather was a political prisoner of Gomez. And later in the by the 1940s, mid-40s, there was this guy who was also a military guy, and he also made a coup. It's a guy that a lot of people simp, but he's not worth it. It's Marcos Pérez Jiménez. Was this chubby, bespectacled guy with glasses. He looks like a stereotypical chubby nerd, but the guy basically was another military dictatorship. He entered through a coup, and he political prisoners, and there were people who were, made disappear and everything. And I remember that by that time, my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, was in the military too, and he was sent to certain areas. I don't remember where, but his father-in-law, my grandmother's father, he was imprisoned by Perez Jimenez people, and it was so much of a shock to her that she, who was at the time pregnant with my dad, well, she went into labor earlier. My father was born in December, and Perez Jimenez fled the country on January. That's on, I believe, in January 23rd. In fact, there's an area in Caracas called 23 de enero, the January 21st. And by the time people say that Perez Jimenez, modernized the country even more, that he built freeways and architecture and stuff, but there wasn't any crime during his period, but that's not true, because there was a certain degree of corruption, and the military and the army, there were some people who stole, who make things, who were corrupt militaries. And during, let's say, from the 1960, 1970, and part of the 1980s, Venezuela was in a very good economical position, to the point that a lot of people were going there because of how modern it was. It was a great economic boom during that time. And during the 1970s to the 1980s, Venezuelan tourists were famous across the Caribbean, I think even the United States, especially in Florida. Sorry. And they were known by a phrase called, that translated to English would be known as, "This is cheap, give me 2 of those." It's the "Tá barato, dame dos," because Venezuelan people had so much money that they could go to any country, and if they saw something that they liked, they bought 2 of those. How cheap it was, because the Bolivar was a very strong currency at the time. That came to a halt in the 1980s, in the late 80s, with what was the Black Friday. Not to be confused with the Black Fridays that it celebrate and every November there in the United States, mind you. Which when Venezuela started with an economical recession, and that's when, and the country was still okay. The economy was still okay. There was some social inequality. Mind you, it's not that everybody was billionaire at the time and everybody could do anything, but there were at least 2 or 3 generations of Venezuelans who actually were able to rise from poverty and be able to go to the university, get a degree, and get a good income, and even travel worldwide. My parents' generation had those benefits, those privileges. However, my generation didn't enjoy those things. I was 8 years old when Chavez rose to power. And speaking of Chavez, I believe that was in when the Caracazo happened. That was, let me check, let me verify, because I don't want to give you a wrong date. That was in the early 90s. No, the Caracazo happened on February of 1989. And I was born in October of that year. Yes, that was the attempt when Chavez and all bunch of military goons tried to stage a coup and everything, and there were a bunch of protests and looting and everything in Caracas, and a part that it's and a zone that is nearby Caracas that's called Guarenas. That was against the government of Carlos Andrés Pérez, and that was involving an increase of the price of oil, of oil, and the price of oil in Venezuela, which is, if you see it, it's kind of similar to the protests, but of course, saving the distances, because I don't want anybody here getting mad and say that's not true. You're lying. Eso no es verdad, Veneca. Of what happened in 2019 in October. You know that people started to protest because of the increase of the public transportation, but it was kind of similar. But of course, what happened in 2019 in Chile was supposedly carried out by civilians, while the Caracazo was by the military, which Chavez was involved in. And I believe a few years later, on February the 4th, there was another event, military event, because in which, I don't know if he was involved, that was in the early 90s, 92. Chavez made another attempt, another failed coup, because he was a failed. He made failed coups before he rose to power. First one was the Caracazo in 1989, then the one in February 4th of 1992. And I think that on that time he was jailed. And since there were plenty of people out there who sort of sympathized, there were plenty of leftist people who sympathized with his ideas and didn't see how dangerous the guy was. They were one of they put him like this charismatic guy who wanted to change things for good and everything, and that's how he won. Among other things, he won the election in 1998, and all this nightmare started for us for 25 years now. That's a quarter of a century. 2 decades and a half. That's of everything. And so basically, to sum it up, Chavez was a guy who made failed coups. He supposedly had a supposed coup in 2002, but that was inside of them. That was among the militaries that they saw how dangerous he was because of how close he was to Fidel Castro and all these leftist guys. But in the end, that didn't work out in the end, and he actually became more powerful, and he became, known as this martyr, this left-wing martyr. And that's why so many left-wing people throughout across the world saw him as this as this figure. And of course, all this happened. His first years were more or less when the petroleum prices increased. So he had a lot of money to burn, and he used most of it in buying conscience and buying influence inside and outside of Venezuela. That's why so many people, so many left-wing people like him so much, because basically many political parties, many left-wing political parties are basically paid with Venezuelan money that the Chavez grabbed from the national wallet and gave it to them. A good example is the political party Podemos in Spain. Basically, Podemos exists because of Chavez. It's only one example, but it's, I'll say, the best example that I can think of. And I don't know if there's any other Venezuelan around who maybe wants to talk, or maybe you want to ask something or say something, Tyler. I don't know.
Yeah, I think before I ask any questions, we can go to Ernest first because he has his hand up right now. So let's go to Ernest.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, like I'm old. I'm 34. I remember la Revolución Bolivariana.
The Bolivarian Revolution. Yep.
That nonsense. And
Yep.
like the sad thing is besides like Vicente Gomez, the other person who kind of actually someone who actually really influenced Chavez, and I'm sad to say this, is a Peruvian president called Juan Velasco Alvarado. Chavez studied at Chorrillos, which is the military school in Lima. He actually was given a book that I also own called La Revolución Peruana. And a lot of the rhetoric that is used by Hugo Chavez was used comes from La Revolución Peruana. Velasco Alvarado is kind of a very similar figure. He's a left-wing military dictator. He did not last that long. He ended up getting replaced by a fellow psychopath called Bermudez, who is somehow still alive and is currently in prison for the rest of his long life in Italy because of killing people, like every good leftist. But the thing I found was I remember also when the coup against Maduro took place, and they called it, like, I used to be a leftist. I was a Trotskyist. I'm really embarrassed about that, but that's how it was. And I remember how when I was with certain political groups, we didn't see this as the people trying to free themselves. We saw this as, a reactionary attempt to seize back power, kind of ruin all the progress that Maduro made, or Chavez made. And Chavez at least was clever enough to see, to use propaganda properly. I find though, since he died, which was I usually don't say this, but that was a great day. Then
I couldn't celebrate because at the time I was working at the National Cinematheque. Otherwise, I would have, buy myself a drink or something. But I couldn't.
I celebrate every year with a bottle of Dominicano.
My father celebrates with some dulce de lechosa. I don't eat it because I don't like that dessert, but my father does.
But the thing I remember is that when Maduro came in, everyone was like, "Oh, he's going to be like a better one because he's a man of the people." Minus the fact that there's all those suspicions that he's actually a Colombian, but that was never proven. But the thing was that I remember how stupid that man was when he started. And I, to this day, I call him the bus driver of the revolution because that's all he was.
That's accurate. That's accurate, actually.
But what you said about the Cubans is very accurate, because even now in Venezuela, we see Cuban forces operating with Sabine, the intelligence service.
Yep.
There's right now, according to my friends in the Venezuelan military, who are getting less and less, sadly, because they're getting kicked out and purged. There's still at least 10 to 15,000 Cubans operating in Venezuela. They are assisting right now with the purges, with the hunting down of people, and that's why I really think that this protest is critical, because we need now to move on this, because Venezuela has been I'm really sorry to say this, Lorena, it's been a pain in the ass for South America for the last 20 odd years. I mean, especially since Maduro.
That revenge. I call that karma. I'm gonna sound petty now. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ernest, but I call that karma. And you know what? Because for many years, the entire continent just looked the other way with Chavez. First with Chavez, because Chavez was the cool guy who bugged everyone's lunch at school, and the cool guy who everybody liked, who give you money just if you said that you were his friend, and everybody and everything. And whenever a Venezuelan was selling, "Hey, we're having a dictatorship, we have a situation here," "Oh, come on, you don't know anything. Chavez is a cool guy. You're just a golpista or something. You're a escuálido," whatever of those
Gusanos.
awful. Yeah. Well, Gusano is more of a Cuban against Cubans, but that kind
Gusano is Cuban.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, true.
And after maybe a decade or so ago, when the massive Venezuelan migration started. Now we became a problem. Now everybody hates us. Now everybody's annoyed of us. Here in Chile, many people despise us. The only exception, I'll dare to say, are the Argentinians who love us. But
the Uruguayans too. I actually spent a bit of time in Montevideo a couple of years ago, and I was actually with a few friends of mine from Valencia, and the Uruguayans were the nicest people to Venezuelans that I had ever
Uruguayans
seen.
are darlings.
They don't like Dominicans though. They really don't like Dominicans, but that's another story. It's South America. You have to dislike someone. There, it's kind of mandatory. But but like no, I agree that it's karma. I remember I was in Lima the first time around like 2017, and I remember how crazy it was at first because you had everyone kind of flooding in, and I mean I can understand why, because you're leaving this really terrible situation in Venezuela, and I probably contributed to that because I helped people get out of Venezuela and into Peru. So I can understand that. And then over the years, I've actually seen it just deteriorate even further. And you can tell that the situation in Venezuela is not better because there's more Venezuelans in Lima. And there's no kind of efforts to like understand their situation. There's no efforts to kind of integrate them better into society. You have them all working in like moto taxis and restaurants.
Or doing deliveries, which is basically, it became a slur for Venezuelans and plenty of South American countries. They call us the delivery people, the delivery boys, or the delivery girls.
I know, like even like I went to I was in Shanghai actually in Peru recently, and I was with some Peruvian friends, and we went to one restaurant, and as soon as you hear "Hola, papi, cómo estás?" Like all you heard was the Peruvians just kind of turn their noses up and be like, "Chamos," and I was like, "No, come on, guys! Like we got to be understanding here." And I mean, they'll listen to me at first because I'm the sacerdote. So in Peru, they'll kind of listen to me a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, like I've seen that, and I've actually worked with a lot of Venezuelan migrants when I was working in a district in Lima called Rimac, because there's a lot of them there, and part
We're
of my
everywhere.
We're
everywhere.
I know.
One of these days, I think the reason there aren't more Venezuelans in Canada is because United States it's in the middle, and United States is huge.
And also, Canada doesn't want Venezuelans here. Like I have like these friends who live in Uruguay now. One's a doctor, and Canada has a horrible medical shortage. And she was a really good doctor, like really well trained, bilingual. And I was trying to get her and her boyfriend at the time, now it's her husband, to come to my province in Canada to work in the rural areas, because like Venezuelan doctors, they have to work in rural areas as part of their training. Mm-hmm. And so when I went to my I guess in Chile and you call them like diputados, I went to my member of parliament. And I was like, listen, I've got this, there's a really good doctor. She's willing to come here. She's willing to work in like really rural Newfoundland where there's like not that many people. And the MP's assistant just said to me, well, I'm sorry, we're more concerned about Syrians and Afghans right now. We don't really need any Venezuelans. I was like,
we don't need any Venezuelans? That's what he said?
That's what they said, and they said, if you want to support them, if you want to bring them here, that's fine. I was like, oh, that's great. How do I do that? And they said, well, do you have $20,000 per head? I was like, no, I don't. And they said, well, give them some thoughts and prayers and have a nice day. And I've been pissed off about that ever since. Like I've been involved in the situation against Maduro for a long time. Like I said earlier, I'm not allowed back in Venezuela because if I do, I get a free room in La Tumba.
Okay, can you tell
or
Lorena
you end up in a tumba. Continue, Tyler.
Yeah. Can you tell the main reason why you cannot go there to Marina? Your particular story.
Okay, so as part of a very big protest with a group of friends of mine, mostly from Caracas, Maracaibo, and a few people in Canada, we sent Via 24 Consoladores Rojas Grandes.
Okay, big red dildos. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
I sent them to Maduro.
Oh, that's cute.
It
I
was
wish
called.
I could see that on the news, but I never found out about that. I really wish that could show up on the news because people would had a blast for at least 2 weeks.
I got free empanadas for that. Hey, listen. Operación Duro por Maduro parte dos. Okay, well, I'm in. That was actually what we called it, Duro por Maduro. And each of them had a very polite letter in Spanish, and mine said to him, we really appreciate the work that you've done in the country. Just so you can kind of understand what you're doing to the people, we invite you to sit on this lovely red consolador sin lubricación, and maybe you might feel a little bit of what you're doing to your people.
Okay, sit on a dildo. Now I learned a brand new insult. Thank you, Ernest, for that.
You're welcome. Also, because of that, I am now on a Sabine watch list. I was going into Venezuela to get some friends out, and a friend of mine in the JMB, they looked my name up just before I went in and told me that if I ended up in Venezuela, I would be arrested immediately for, what was it, gross insult to the office of the president. The fact that man is the president is a gross insult to the office, but that's another story for another day. Yep. So yeah, I don't usually swear in spaces, so forgive me, but fuck Maduro is kind of my my thing. It has been for the last 10, 13 years.
Yeah, and I feel you. That has been the Venezuelan collective feeling for all these years since he rose to power. Mm-hmm.
If only Maduro was the one feeling that thing.
Yep.
But maybe the guys in the mail office in Miraflores had a laugh at this before they were all purged for allowing it to be even delivered to the building.
Okay. So getting back to the to the topic, there's one common thing that I noticed, maybe for a lot of people from my particular country, that they say one of the main reasons why Venezuela is actually in a big, situation that's really awful right now is largely because of American intervention. What's your response to comments like those kind of things I just said right now?
You're asking me?
Yes.
Well, the really short answer to that I'll give would be yes and no. Yes, on one hand, because, like I said before, Chavez used the petroleum wallet to buy conscience and buy voices and basically unofficial spokespersons for him inside and outside of the United States, but especially in the United States. And I'm sure that there's no secret that there are plenty of universities throughout the United States that receive money from anti-US countries, anti-US governments. So to basically speak on behalf of them and people who are anti-US for whichever reason, whether they're valid or not, I'm not gonna talk about that because everybody's story or situation is different. But when you invalidate the situation of an entire country just because, if basically you sympathize with someone who is basically destroying, not just oppressing, destroying a country, basically you don't have how do I say this? Basically, you're an accomplice to that person. You're an accomplice to that tyrant of turn. And unfortunately, that's something that has become very common, not only the United States, but throughout many countries in the Western world. Canada, I'm sure that Canada included. I'm sorry, Ernest, but it's true. I'm sure that.
No, it's really true. There's a lot of Mama Huevo.
Yeah, a bunch of for those for those of you who don't know, mama huevo means cocksucker or dick sucker. So yeah, every time that you hear Venezuela con you, mama huevo, they're telling you cocksucker, or someone told you, ve a mamar un huevo, go suck a cock or go suck a dick. Okay, there.
Maduro's favorite activity, by the way.
Yeah, but to get back to the topic and to not offend those who are into that activity, because I don't know what what anyone does during their private times. Back to the topic. Well, there were plenty of people, not only in the universities, because I don't want to blame just the university students and the academics. I'm gonna get more into that. There were, I'm sure that there were organizations and political parties that were built with Venezuelan money, more like, yeah, Venezuelan money that was grabbed by Chavismo as a propaganda. I mean, basically, after 2002, after the failed coup to bring him down, Chavez invested a lot of money in propaganda because he understood how powerful propaganda is. If you have people who spoke on your behalf outside of the country, you have you have allies. And in the United States, I'll say that's here. But on the other hand, I don't know how many self-proclaimed right-wing parties or self-proclaimed Republican parties or even self-proclaimed conservative politicians might have received money from Chavismo, might have done businesses with Chavismo during first the time of Chavez and then Maduro, because I remember when George W. Bush came into power and Chavez insulted him on national TV constantly and everything. And then Obama rose to power, and then Chavez insulted him, and then even used a couple racial slurs. I don't remember which ones, but I'm not going to say them here. And then Trump rose to, and then Maduro said the same, so that he was a killer and everything. And then Trump rose to power, and now Biden rose to power. And basically, any of them, any of those presidents could have done something more. If not, you didn't have like do a military intervention like it happened with, let's say, Iraq and Afghanistan, but at least doing something more, helping more the people. And maybe we wouldn't have this problem, because I know that there are plenty of leftist people that accuse us Venezuelans of lying, of being, bourgeois, that we're just, rich, white, privileged people who hate Chavez and hate Maduro and hate the poor, and we flare our countries and we want to tell them how to live and how to do their things. That's something that happens very commonly here in Chile. In fact, after 2019, there were plenty of leftist Chileans that started to loathe Venezuelans because many of us did not agree with all these protests. The destruction of the Santiago subway and the destruction of the Baquedano Square and the looting and everything. We didn't agree with any of that because that's inhuman, and that's lack of common sense. How come are you going to destroy the subway if people do need that to go to work? How are you going to loot a business or a store if actually people make their income, make a living out of that? And they were mad at us because we didn't support that, and many of them hated us because Chile has also a complicated story with dictatorships, with Pinochet and everything. My mother actually fled Chile on the early years of Pinochet, and she fled to Venezuela and lived most of her life there. And on the other hand, but also there, not only leftist people insult us, there are plenty of right-wing people, not only inside of, not only in Chile but throughout many countries in the world, and I'm sure that that happens also in the United States, and Ernest can tell me whether that happens in Canada too. They called us cowards. They called us cowards. How can you fled your country? You're a coward. Why don't you stay up fighting? Well, I'm sorry, man. I endure a lot of crap. You didn't endure squat. You're whining. Okay? You're a parasite. You're whining. You couldn't grab a gun. Well, I'm sorry. We can't have guns in Venezuela. There's gun control. Well, you should have fought for that. We did. And we lost. Oh, you're whining. You're below. You're trying to lie to me. You know, people call us, like invaders, parasites that are there to eat their food and take their jobs that, by the way, no one wants, and, screw their husbands, screw their wives, and that our children, give away cooties to their children, because apparently before Venezuelans came, no one there ever stole or ever said a bad word or cheat on their partners or had cooties or gave STDs. No. It's all our fault. And we're cowards because apparently we never protested. So you tell those people, hey, there were plenty of protests throughout the 2000s and the 2010s, and you actually show them evidence, and they say, they're just, many of them never tell you your face, but they say, I don't care, or they say, oh, another guy, another one who protests, boo-hoo. And okay, I get it. You hate migrants. You hate everything that's, you're anti-woke, but you lack empathy as well. So yeah, that's, sorry for that.
Yeah, I also noticed that we have like another person from Venezuela listening to us. His name is Pablo, and his profile picture says, on a mission to democratize Venezuela. So, Pablo, if you want to talk to us, just tell me as soon as possible. That way we can have your perspective in this particular conversation. So, let's fast forward to right now, because like I said earlier in the conversation before we had the difficulties with the internet and stuff, I was telling Ernest that, of course, the initial news showed that basically Maduro was shown as the winner, I think over 50% of the vote. And I think Amundo Gonzalez had less than 40 something percent. But then on the flip side, when you go to the website that I found and you see all the data points that they gather, it turns out that he actually had 70% of the votes in comparison to Maduro. Can you go into more details about that?
That's those were the I remember that's what the National Electoral Center said, that Maduro won over Edmundo Gonzalez over that advantage of those numbers you said. But depending on the electoral center in which you could see the votes, which something I want to mention, Tyler, many people outside of Venezuela were not able to vote, including myself. That's something that, and it's on one side, it's actually surprising that so many people that without so many votes that were out because of all their scamming, because if your ID was not up to date or your passport was not up to date or anything, were not able to vote. Gonzalez won with such a great margin. Depending on the center, there were Gonzalez margin was larger than others. Some was about 90% or 60%. And if you can see on the news, supposedly they were going to show the tallies, and they haven't done so yet. I think that you've heard that on the news, that everybody's asking for those.
Yeah, like I've heard that. I know that people have been out in the streets a lot more than they have in the last couple of years and in the last few elections. I remember, what was his name who ran the last time? Was it Falcon? I think it Falcon who was in the last election?
I cannot. The name kind of crossed me right now, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like when that election happened, there wasn't this kind of unrest. But now, I guess people are just so fed up with it that we are seeing a really big outpouring of, cries for democracy. The thing is, though, I think that we need to ask is this going to be any different? Is this going to get suppressed by like the colectivos, the security forces, or anything? Because I'm really hopeful that this time around things change, but I still feel like the opposition they don't have the best intentions. Because I remember when it was like MO Day, and I used to have this joke about it. Like, you could either get stuck in the mud, or you could get shafted by the great patriotic pole. And I'm just kind of asking you, Lorena, like, I feel that things are a little bit different now. Do you also feel that this is different than other protests?
Oh yeah, it's way more different. I dare to say it almost feels as if was as it felt when it was 2002, when I was a child. And I think that's the greatest difference, is because people, one of the greatest deeds that Maria Corina Machado made, because everything started with her, is that she reignited hope in people. Because, as you know, Ernest, the diaspora has grown throughout these decades. And one of the things that she offered people in Venezuela is, okay, your loved ones are going to come back. And of course, that's one of the most severe damages that Chavismo has done to Venezuela, that it tore families apart. It tore families apart, including mine. Everybody has either a friend or a relative that's outside of that left the country. There are parents whose children left the country. There are grandparents who never know their own grandchildren. Or yes, either they were killed by crime, or they were kidnapped or taken away by the counterintelligence, either by the civil or the military, or whoever, or they fled the country. So, and one of the promises that Machado made to the people was, if we win, we will make the families reunite. That's on one hand. And on the other hand, people feel like they have nothing to lose. They have nothing. The electricity doesn't work. They don't have running water. For years, people starved. And it might sound that I found that amusing, but no, that was a very sad memory. People actually starved. People couldn't find food at the stores, or if they found food, that it was only one thing. And I remember that my father and me for months only ate pasta and chicken nuggets, and I lost a lot of weight, or a lot of people, and there were several foods that disappeared for years. And yeah, people felt, okay, I don't have anything to lose this time. This time I have nothing to lose. So if they kill me, they kill me. But if I defeat them, victory would be sweeter. Okay, what were you saying? You were going to say something.
Yeah, go ahead. You can talk now.
Okay, Someone was going to say something. I don't know if it was Ernest or someone else.
I think it's Rodriguez, the guy with the hand up. He wanted to say something.
Okay. You may speak.
Keep going, Andrew, something. Keep going.
Okay, adelante, sí, habla. Que ibas a decir algo, me
No,
parece.
sigue, estoy conduciendo. Sigue, ahora voy yo.
Okay, he's driving. No, it's okay. No, and I think it was Ernest. Were you going to say something, Ernest?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, kind of touching on the Maduro diet. By the way, like, I remember how a lot of my friends lost a lot of weight because, like, there was nothing. And one thing that always, like, made me very angry was there were so many people who were like, oh, it's not actually that bad, or the reason that everything is bad is because of the sanctions. If only they didn't sanction PDVSA. Oh my goodness, how Venezuela would be fine. It's all the Americans. And or when they apparently hacked the dam, which they couldn't actually hack because it was analog and there was no connection to the internet. There's always these mama huevos. They always have an excuse.
Of course they have an excuse. They're cynical. You have to understand. Cynical people always have an excuse. Go on.
Yeah. So sorry, Ernest, but we got like another Venezuelan here.
Oh, sure.
His name is Prodeo. Go ahead. How are you doing?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi. Yes, I'm from Venezuela. Yeah, that's my name. Well, my fake name, of course. Sí, pues, soy venezolano y mi voz en español. ¿Y de qué están hablando? What are you talking about actually?
Estamos hablando
A mí me
de
dijeron la
la
verdad.
situación de allá.
Estuve escuchando y sé inglés, pero no mucho. Escuché, o sea, entendí un poco, sí, un poco de lo que dijiste. Tu abuelo es prisionero político.
Mi bisabuelo fue
Tu
prisionero
bisabuelo.
político. Uno de ellos, o sea, el padre de mi abuelo fue preso político de Gómez y el suegro de mi abuelo, o sea, sí, mi bisabuelo, pero de parte de mi abuela, fue prisionero político de Pérez Jiménez.
No sé si yo podría mencionar a un pariente mío que creo, no sé si fue preso político, pero creo que sí estaba preso en la dictadura de mi país. The dictatorship power. No sé.
¿En cuál dictadura fue eso?
The dictatorship of Alfredo Stroessner. O sea, la dictadura.
Stroessner. Okay. Wow, that's awful.
Stroessner is a fucking bastard, like communist dictators. O sea, es la misma mierda que los dictadores comunistas. La única diferencia es que él era un anticomunista, pero bueno.
Bueno, derecha o izquierda son la misma mierda.
Sí, exactamente.
There's somebody here that, well, let me speak here. Anyone that supports the government here or something like that, or
Absolutely not.
well, I don't mean to sound hateful, or just I've seen a lot of foreign people that really want to know, and others that seem to they think they know. So yeah, and support the government, and then they're debating and saying all those arguments that they seem to read somewhere, and just that. That doesn't seem like a concern here for what I hear.
No. Like, I'm actually not allowed in Venezuela. I'll go to jail. So I really don't. I don't like Maduro, and I really hate Sabine. So, like, fuck them all.
Yeah, that's pretty good to hear.
Yeah. To keep a long story short, he sent a dildo to Maduro. That's why he cannot be there.
24 of them actually. So yeah. By the way, Dina Bullard is next, but
Con with me. Con with me.
oh yeah, we'll do this. Dildos for Dina. But the thing is though, there needs to be a lot more awareness raised in like Estados Unidos, Canada, los países europeos, to discuss this, because we can't just let this issue get swept under the rug for like the Israel situation, the Ukraine situation. We really can't, because I mean, this impacts pretty much I'm pretty sure everyone here has been impacted in some way, shape, or form by the Bolivarian bullshit. Like I've seen it. Kind of make a long story short, as well, I've seen the effects of it in Peru, where I am a permanent resident. Hopefully a citizen soon, because I want my llama passport, and free emoliente for life. But the thing is, people don't talk about it because chamos. That's the sad reality of it. They think like, oh, you know, they wanted the communism, they'll get it. And now that they don't like it, well, too bad, so sad. That's the kind of common, I guess, Latino mentality for it. And then you have these leftists here in Canada who always just say it's the Americans, it's the fascist counter-revolutionary elements. They just want to make Venezuelans like slaves again. They just want to like plunder the country, not realizing that, you know, who's been plundering the country? Cubans. Cubans have been plundering the shit out of
and
Venezuela.
Russians. Don't
and
forget
the Chinese.
And the Chinese.
Yep. No. Yeah, I'm just kind of using like the main middleman, because I mean Cuba's the big player here, in the region, and I do know that the situation is, at least around the Cubans, is very concerning, even in Peru, because I have friends in high places in the Peruvian police, and
it's such a Cuban invasion.
Yeah, no, there's so many Cubans operating in Venezuela right now. They're helping people. They're helping the government send people to like Helioicade and La Tumba and these other like secret prisons.
If I don't remember, there are more than 10,000, right?
Also, I think I see some footage of Russians also helping them too in Venezuela.
Yeah,
The
Wagner's been
Wagner
there
group.
for years.
Yeah, the Wagner group mostly, though, they operate in central Caracas. They're primarily concerned with making sure Maduro doesn't die. Now, at least through not natural causes. We can only hope that sooner or later that empanada is finally going to do him in. But yeah, I really wish this was like a Pedro Castillo situation where he just like screws up badly enough that he tries to escape. By the way, I have to say, Pedro Castillo is my favorite political idiot, next to Maduro.
Same.
Yeah. Oh God. Just imagine, dude, trying to escape people, like the angry people in your car in downtown Lima in rush hour, like peak levels of retardation. But I mean, that's what happens when you go to Cesar Vallejo as a university. Dude, I know everything about Peru. Trust me, I do. I am literally the whitest Peruvian ever. But no, like kind of to get back on the seriousness of this, there needs to be support coming in to get Maduro out. I think that there is a lot of like, especially in Peru, at least, there's so much anti-communism. I'm actually surprised that there's not some legion of Peruvians going over there just to kind of like overthrow the government so that, the Venezuelans will go. No offense to mis amigos venezolanos acá. I'm just kind of just saying that. So please don't take it offensively. But that would probably be the best way to get the Peruvians involved. Just be like, the Venezuelans will go home if we overthrow the government. And you would have literally everyone from like every party probably unify, except, God, what was her name? Veronica Mendoza, because she just loves Chavismo, because she's an idiot. And she's French. She's French. She's French, so that's even worse. It's like the pseudo Quechua chick. But the only people who I don't know where they stand are the God, what were they called? The Los Israelitas, the party for them.
Those guys. I thought
Yeah.
that's just a joke.
No, they're great. I love them. They're so hilarious. I argue with them all the time in Plaza San Martin. But no, like the thing is that we have to realize is that there needs to be more awareness done by people. There needs to be like legitimate arguments about this. There needs to be real pushback, because if people just sit there and take the shitty talking points, like nothing is going to get done. Nothing is really going to change, and it's just going to be another one wide open fuck up.
Well,
Yeah,
one
I think more than ever, because the situation has gotten desperate as of yesterday. Because I know, of course, we talked about how many Venezuelans were suffering directly from hunger and poverty and all that stuff. That's awful. But since yesterday, Maduro stated that he has plans to send the protesters to at least two maximum security prisons, and it sounds horrific when I saw that speech for the first time. It's like incredibly awful just listening to that.
Yep, it's awful.
Like no, like and the thing.
Let me say, the only people I see celebrating a lot in the street the victory of the supposed victory of Maduro, just people in motorcycles and mostly with their faces covered, and the police behind with a lot of guns guarding them. It's like it's
Oh, are you talking about the people on the motorbikes?
The
yeah,
colectivos. You
Los
mentioned
colectivos,
colectivos.
eh?
Yeah.
the collectivos. That's the only people I've seen celebrating in the street in these days
But
here.
that's the only people who are celebrating because they benefit directly from the
Yeah, they get paid by the regime.
They're they're just there passing by in their motorcycles,
yeah they
and the police and the rest of the city just empty. Everything seems empty. Nothing is moving. People are hidden in their houses.
it's like the only other people I've actually seen support them are these old communists who go to like Plaza San Martin in Lima. They're the only ones who are like jubilant about Maduro. But that's just because they're all unemployed and don't do anything all day except bitch and complain, and fantasize about
I
some
can
kind of
confirm
weird.
that.
Yeah. Oh, I also am kind of curious where Tyler Humala stands on all of this, because he's psychotic. If he's not busy looking at Hello Kitty.
Hello, Kitty.
Oh God, I listen. I'm doing a podcast soon on ethnocacerismo. It is the most hilarious thing next to like the Bolivarian Revolution. It is the second funniest shit that I've ever seen.
I can confirm that. Yeah.
Except Free Pap. Free Pap is even better. But yeah, no, like seriously, like I'm sorry to make so many jokes in that, Tyler, and kind of take away. It's just this.
No. We all need a good laugh in this situation. We all.
And that's all I can do, because like honestly, as like even before I became like a priest or studying to be one, the situation in Venezuela has been very personal for me. I've had friends die because of Sabine. They've been like killed and disappeared and murdered. So I have a very particular hatred for the PSUV. I hate every single one of them, and I know hate is not something that as a future priest I should have. But damn it, I can't help it. The thing is that we really do need to get this awareness out there. We do need to let people know that this can't be allowed to continue. It's such a terrible thing. It's impacted millions of people, and nobody really understands the gravity of that. We'll talk all the time about, oh, this many people have been killed in Gaza or in Ukraine and this and that. But how many millions of people have had to abandon everything that they've ever known, everything that they've ever had, and go to places completely unfamiliar to them? They had to sit there and take all of this discrimination, all of this vitriol, all of this hatred, and because their government let them down. Their government was not in their interests. And I mean, I'm really shocked, as like someone who deeply loves Peru, of course, that after the whole Castillo debacle, that people aren't more sympathetic. I mean, Peru nearly got itself another like autogolpe. If luckily Castillo was too stupid to do that, thank God. But nobody really seems to care, and it breaks my heart. And I mean, like, even the Catholic Church, this church that, especially in America Latina, where they have this Teología de Liberación, which was founded, of course, by another Peruvian who I do vaguely admire, minus the Marxism bits, Gustavo Gutierrez. People like that even are silent. I haven't heard Padre Gutierrez say anything. I haven't heard the various theologians that I've worked with in South America talk about any of this. They're like, oh, it's so sad, but let's focus on the big conflicts. And this is, in reality, it's a huge conflict. It's massive. And just because there's not bullets like flying all the time, it doesn't mean that it's any less important. This is a critical issue for our continents, our dual continents, and we ignore it. And because we ignore it, it's only going to get worse. And if we allow this kind of oppression and tyranny to keep being perpetrated, sooner or later, other countries are going to experience it. I mean, like I said earlier, the case of Peru, we could have had something like that. We could have had Senor Sombrero take over fully. I know. Luckily, he's stupid. But I mean, he had what was his name? Rojas. Rojas was, a dumbass too. And the governor of Junin, he was so incompetent, he actually got kicked out of being the governor of Junin. Because like, how do you get kicked out of Junin, dude? It's no one cares about it. But still, we could have had this in Lima. We could have had another like shitty Juan Velasco Alvarado. We could have had these things even in Colombia, even in Brazil. We can have these things. That's so possible.
I know the reason. Why. Like, here with the Latino mentality, until the problem doesn't slap our face, we are not going to do anything. Like, I don't know why.
No, it's because it's your people are just, they grow up with this apathy because they tell you, like, I found it's weird. Peru, like, I can only really speak on the Peruvian mentality because that's what I'm familiar with. It's that you have all these people who have all of these opinions, and they'll go and they'll bitch and complain in places like Plaza San Martin and these other plazas. But will they actually do anything real? Even the protests suck. It's nuts. Like, you remember a few, I don't know if it's still going on in Centro de Lima, but I mean, they'll shut down the damn plaza for like 5 old guys complaining about Porky.
They do it all the weeks.
Dude, I know. I actually, when I was in Lima, I had Instagram, and like whenever I would go in Plaza Mayor, I would be like, "This is your daily reminder that daily reminder to no tocar el césped, because Dino Bolarte doesn't want you in the plaza." But that's the thing. People are just so passive about it. I mean, it's worse here in Canada. Like, in my province, the government sucks. They built a giant hydro dam that still doesn't really work, and it cost us like $6 billion. We're broke, and all people do is complain on Twitter. That's literally all we do. If anyone did something similar to what they might do in like Peru or Venezuela, like, the government would freak out and give them everything they want. But in Peru, I don't know. It's just this. It's weird. They want to be macho, but like when it comes to the politics, they just sit there and they'll take it. Like the congressman will rob you blind. And I lived next door to Congress for like a couple of months. Worst neighbors in the world, by the way. And like these people were literally in there stealing and causing all these problems, and nobody said jack shit. I'm also not allowed in the Peruvian Congress. Fun fact. But that was a no. I didn't do anything as bad.
What you did? What you did? Tell me. Tell us. Please tell us.
Okay. So not this year, but last year they had a electric car show at the Congress in Plaza Boulevard, and yeah, it was awful. I got in because a friend of mine is a comandante. So he gets me in. I'm wandering around, and another friend of mine was Alfares, and I was standing there talking to him, and I was so angry that they had these like electric Lexuses there, and like I mean like Rodrigo, you know Central de Lima, it smells like pee. It just smells like orina. I mean,
Yeah.
like Porky calls it Potencia Mundial. I call it Potencia. It's Urinal Mundial. Potencia Urinal. Because
that sounds familiar for me. That makes me think of El Centro de Caracas. The
Oh,
Centro
it's
de
worse.
Caracas, when I used to be in Caracas,
It's
because
worse.
I haven't been in Caracas for a long time, it smelled like pee too. It smelled like a urinal.
Yeah, no, it's even worse. Like if you ever get the chance to go to Lima, like stay away from like Plaza San Martin. That is like ground zero for urine. It although it's mostly I'm sorry, it's mostly Venezuelans, but
Well, mostly
because
Venezuelans who use that as a urinal.
yeah, because they won't let them use the bathrooms, or
okay.
or you have
That's
or
fine.
people, or I've seen like when I went, I had a friend of mine who was Venezuelan. He was trying to use the bathroom. They wanted like 10 souls just to go pee. So the only thing you can do is pee in the plaza. I've never had that. I've only just drank in the plaza like every other Peruvian should. But the thing is, so I went to this event at the Congress, and I told this friend of mine, I was like, "This is ridiculous. You have cars here that are like 150,000 soles or more, next to a place where people have to pee in the corners of doors because they can't afford a bathroom." And there's all these like congresistas there, and I was like, I'm gonna go and ask them about this. And I had like my kind of my collar on and that, and my friend this Alfredes goes, oh, that's a very insightful and important thing to talk about. I agree. Too bad I can't let you do that. I was like, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, one, you're only a resident. You're not a citizen. So you are not allowed to actually have an opinion here. I'm really sorry, Father. Or Padrecito. And so I'm going to have to stay with you until you are kicked out. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, I'm going to first make sure that you are never going to be able to cause any problems. So we're going to go look at the cars. I was like, well, I don't really want to. And he takes out his baston, and he just goes, he takes out his nightstick, and he just goes, we're going to look at the cars, and we're going to have a wonderful time. Adelante.
Oh no!
I had to sit in this freaking Lexus that I was so angry about. And he's like, he starts taking his phone out and takes pictures. And he's like, come on, smile for the camera. If you cause any problems, you'll be a hypocrite. And he makes me take pictures in this. Now, listen, just for the poor people, they were very thoughtful. They had one electric moto taxi. They had one electric moto taxi there just for the people. Everything else was the price of a house in San Juan Lurigancho. Like he makes me take pictures, and then he goes, all right, Padrecito, it's time to go. I was like, no, I'm not done. He goes, you're definitely done, or I'm actually going to have to arrest you. And I don't want to do that because you're my friend, and the commandant is going to have too many questions. So, vamos, adelante. And I leave. He says, I have to let you know when you're allowed in again. But I'm going to have to take he's like, give me your passport. So I gave him the picture of my passport, and he like copies it. And then he goes, "Yeah, I'll call you later and tell you what the punishment is. By the way, vamos por una cerveza mañana." And I was like, "Puta madre, en serio, hermano?" And he goes, "I'll pay."
You shouldn't have give him your passport. They
I
can't do that if they don't have a really solid reason.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm a foreigner. They don't give a shit. And also, the only thing that protects me is mi carne de iglesia. And I don't actually have one of those because Canada does not have a priest card. I just have a picture of me in a robe. And that actually, oh, by the way, fun fact, that gets you into any church museum in Lima for free. If you show them that you're with the church, you can just go to museums and they don't charge you. I can also get through every blockade in Lima. I even got through when the president was going for mass at the cathedral, and I also almost got in trouble for saying why she didn't catch on fire when she walked through the doors. And then when they asked me why would I say that, I said, well, it's because she's going to hell anyway because she keeps shooting people. That's like Dina's thing, you know. She's what do they call her, Rodrigo? Genocide Barbie. That when like the Barbieheimer thing came up, she was like Genocide Barbie.
Barbieheimer or Barbenheimer. Barbenheimer.
But she. I mean, that would have been good for God. What's his name in Chile? That Cas. Yeah, he would have loved. He would have loved anything vaguely German and genocidal.
Felipe Cast. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. So I'm pretty Peruvian, but I mean, I'm not enough that I can get away with too much shit. The weird thing is that everyone assumes that because I'm white, I can get away with stuff, but it's actually because I'm with the church. That's the only reason.
That's something that plenty of people would say, and I think that's why so many so-called conservative people want like a sort of theocracy, because they say, well, if we get a theocracy in power, a theocrat in power, like supposedly is happening with the candidate's vice president, this guy, what's his name? The one who wrote the Hillbilly book and
Vance
threw shit on his family. He wants supposedly to theocracy. Okay, well, we'll get it like that they'll get away with everything because, you know, they're the church.
God help us if the church gets anything in Peru, because I mean, all we need is another Cardinal Cipriani. I mean, it's bad.
Yep.
Oh, have you ever heard of that dude?
I heard of him before, but I don't remember quite much.
He remember all of the sterilizations of indigenous women that went on during Fujimori?
Oh, yeah, I remember that. And by chance, was he involved with the whole Shining Path thing, or was that Fujimori?
Fujimori just did all the Shining Path killings. I actually had a chance. I actually had a chance to meet Vladimir Montesinos in the base in Callao, but I didn't get time while I was there. I had to go back to Canada. But I apparently have an open invitation to meet the puppet master of Peru. I'm terrified to even consider that. I do want to meet Alberto because I've met Keiko and Kenji long before Veguito became a thing. Yeah, don't look into Kenji and Veguito. That's a weird, funny story.
Don't forget about our situation and that it can affect your country too.
Yep.
And this issue is not something that is remote. It's in the middle of the Western civilization, and it's just a normal situation all around. And
what we need to do is get Maduro to talk shit about Alianza Lima. Then we can get Peru on board.
Yeah.
By the way, somos Alianza.
What if I tell you I'm from the EU?
Fuck you. Anyway, I'm done talking about Peru. I'll have to get you on another live after. But yeah, no, no. But the thing is that, like, does anyone have any confidence in Gonzalez? That is the other question here.
Yep.
Do we?
I do.
Yeah.
But he looks 100%. Tired. That's that. Like, I feel a bit better about Gonzalez than I do about Juan Guaido, because, you know, Guaido was just there for the money and the Colombian cocaine.
Yeah, he's a clown.
Oh God, is he ever? But the thing is like, is are we going to see like the other people like remember like the ghost of Mud always comes back. I'm really worried about like Capriles and these other idiots coming because I think they're just as bad as Maduro. I hate most of the MOD. I hate them so much because they screwed up so many opportunities to like fight back.
Yeah. If you see I link a tweet in the chat of this space of Capriles.
Hello?
That says everything about him. He's literally sucking Chavez cock right there.
Lucy was going to say something.
Yes,
Yeah,
please, adelante.
I'm also confident about Gonzalez. I feel like he's not gonna do the same thing as Guaido or as Capriles. I think they're going like Maria Corina says, like to the end. And for me, I feel confident about that because when I believe it was 2013 when the presidentials happened and Capriles quote unquote lost to Maduro. He like said to the people that go out to the streets and yada yada, but at the end of the day he didn't do anything. And Maria Corina, I feel like she has a strong presence among the people and she's using that presence to to get us like to she's committed. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know. Sometimes I lose my English. Sorry.
I concur with you. I do think the same that Maria Corina is actually committed and she actually learned from the others' mistakes. She learned from Capriles' mistakes. She learned from Guaido's mistakes. She learned from she even learned from Leopoldo Lopez's mistakes. He was one of the responsibles who turned basically the guy turned off the protest in 2014 and 2017 when there was actually some sort of progress with the protest, and the guy just basically negotiated with the Chavismo and he just pulled off everything. But Maria Corina is not. She's actually, it's like she actually took notes. While everybody wanted to be on the spotlight, she was on the background taking notes and said, okay, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to do this. As for Gonzalez himself, I dare to say he's a diplomat. He might look like a cute grandpa guy, the guy who sits down, drinks coffee, even play chess with you or play domino with you, but the guy's a diplomat. He's not some random guy that Maria Corina grab and say, hey, he's here, he's going to be our candidate. No, he's someone who knows what he's doing and he has experience. That's what matters. He has political experience. So when with all the international situation, what Ernest said with the attitude of Canada, of Canadian authorities towards Venezuelans and South America and basically all the American continent with everything. He's a diplomat, so he knows he's someone who must know what to say, how to say, and when to say. So I don't think that he might.
And you think this situation this time is for real? You guys think that? Huh? This situation, you think it's different than the others?
Sí, que la situación es distinta ahora, o sea, ya no es como las veces pasadas. Y además, Edmundo González no es simplemente un señor cuchi que no sé, que juega con el perrito o que toma café o juega dominó. No, es un diplomático de carrera, es alguien que sabe lo que hace. Y justamente ahora que la región de América está tan dividida respecto a Venezuela, pues él debe saber a quién hablarle, cómo hablar, cuándo hablar.
Exactamente. Además que él ya tiene experiencia. Si no me equivoco, él ha sido embajador de Argelia y Argentina. Y si bien no es como la primera persona que esperabas que fuera como candidato a presidencia, pues también es como un poco, él es, o sea, si bien no es como la primera persona que te imaginabas, es un poco como lo que necesitábamos para que María Corina también pudiese dar un paso hacia adelante, porque...
Exacto.
I think it's going to be like very positive if he gets to the government, It's going to be...
I really hope so. I have been like I'm sorry if I sounded a bit skeptical. It's just that, you know, over the last like decade or so of all of this stuff that's been happening, you know, you can't help but be sometimes a little bit cynical. You know, because we all remember the enthusiasm with Wido. You know, we all had this hope.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah, it's
so
understandable. That position is
hate that guy.
understandable. I hate him too.
everyone should hate Juan Wido. There needs to be one. There needs to
No,
be
trust
one.
me, everyone hates him. Everyone
There,
hates him.
there needs to be a day where everyone just gathers and throws a shoe at Juan Wido or like a rotten empanada. But I will put a bottle of Diplomatico rum in my empanada and throw it at his head.
It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler. It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler. It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler.